This week's movie, Who Am I? Armed with merely a twig and assisted by a sword-wielding giant, I am sent on a quest to protect a child from certain death. Stay tuned to find out. You're listening to the Banana Reel Movie Podcast, episode 31. Warning, this show contains spoilers and coarse language, so you've been forewarned. Hey there, folks. We are the Theatre Gorillas. My name is Carlos.
No, he's not Heath.
I know that.
He's Bill. I was waiting for Heath to come out.
Well, anyway, we have a special guest on the show today. It's a good friend of the show, Bill Papavasiliou.
I cannot repeat that, sorry. That's Bill.
And I'm Dan.
Yeah.
And I'm Lee.
Wow, this is a great start.
Yeah.
Well, to try and bring it back into the normality of things, you can always reach us at theatregorillas.com or at theatregorillas for Twitter, facebook.com/theatregorillas, or you can email us theatregorillas@gmail.com, all the UK English way.
And we're on YouTube now as well.
Yes, we are.
So search Theatre Gorillas on YouTube. You should find the channel.
Yeah. And
It looks good, man.
yeah, it's
coming together.
yeah, slowly. Yeah. But you've got to start somewhere. And if you like the show, always rate us on iTunes. That's always a big help. And subscribe. So anyway, off to the news. What have we got for this week?
Well, first of all, I suppose... well, Lee looked at me. I'm like, well, all right, I'll go. New trailer for Suicide Squad drops the other day.
Good.
Yeah, and the first footage from the Wonder Woman movie.
I haven't caught up on that one yet. What have they shown in the second one, in the Wonder Woman?
Well,
one?
so it was sort of an interview with somebody that was working on it. So there was just sort of they threw to footage every once in a while. So there was nothing too revolutionary about it. It looks much like the footage we've seen previously and the stuff from Batman vs Superman. So yeah, no sort of light on details, but it looks like it's shaping up to be interesting at least.
I'd rather that, to be honest. Like, I really hated the fact that they dropped Superman, Batman, and then they had footage of her, Wonder Woman, in it coming out of nowhere. It's like, fucking, that would have been a great surprise.
Well, there's also meant to be the Flash and Aquaman in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and aren't they talking about bringing the Green Lantern Corps into the Justice League as well? So
Really?
I don't know whether or not that's going to be for Batman versus Superman, but apparently they're going to be incorporated in as well.
maybe at least a mention.
Yeah.
With Suicide Squad, the trailer actually surprised me and has me actually interested in the movie now.
Right? Yeah.
I was always interested, but I was a bit skeptical on some of the characters.
Yeah.
So wait, who's Will Smith? He's Bullseye.
Supposed to be
No, he's Deadshot.
Deadshot.
Yeah.
Deadshot.
Sorry, did I do the wrong? I did the
Marvel.
wrong. I did the Marvel character.
You
Not
crossing
that they're
cinematic universes.
They're not similar at all. Don't worry about it.
Heath may not be with us, but we have a replacement for him who is just as knowledgeable in comics.
Very good. Yeah. So being a recognized, so recognized an actor, I'm hoping that he doesn't screw it up.
Yeah, that's the one thing that
He's not a character actor
about.
as such. He usually plays himself in most movies.
He kind of is in movie jail, so he's kind of at ransom doing this movie. So I'm hoping he doesn't purposely sort of screw it up because he's being forced to do it.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
He's being forced to make it.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I can't remember the details exactly, but I know that what's the girl's name doing Harley Quinn?
Margot Robbie.
That's it.
Yeah.
So they were in the movie Focus together.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Right. Apparently, she's had a go at him already for not being on time for interviews and stuff like that. And the fact that they've worked on this movie where she wasn't entirely impressed with him, and now they're in another movie together. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't mind it. I just was a bit worried about. To be honest, it was Will Smith. He's a very recognizable actor, and he's not known for his character acting as such. To me, it feels like it's just him playing him in every movie he's in.
Well, it kind of is the same with Tom Hanks. Like,
I suppose there's many actors that are like that.
yeah. It's just
Well, Samuel L. Jackson as well. He
Yeah.
kind of just plays himself, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, to me, it's so long as they have some emotion. I don't care if they play themselves and you've seen them in every other movie as that.
Yeah.
So long as they treat the script right and, give it their all, like not...
Yeah.
not
So who does he play in this one? Does he play Bullseye? No, not Bullseye. Sorry.
Deadshot. He's a pretty complex character. Like, he's like the best thing about Suicide Squad, in my opinion. I used to read the 80s series.
Right, okay.
And it's...
So he's more pivotal than even I thought.
Yeah, he's like, to me, he's a standout character in that whole like concept. And he's like suicidal. He wants to die. Like hero, but like, I don't know. And it doesn't...
Kind of like he's got nothing to lose.
Yeah, he's got nothing to lose. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting if Will Smith can bring the gravitas that role seems like it
Well,
requires.
if he pulls, see, like I know some people didn't like the movie so much, but iRobot, I like it. It's
I liked it.
it's a no-brainer, just pass the time action film.
Yeah.
But in that movie, he actually has that sort of sorrow in his face, like he has been hurt by something in the past, and just,
then he's got a bit of anger towards it, which if he draws on that, maybe it'll be good. But yeah, I thought it was pretty risky putting someone that's so well known into that role.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
See, and I'm still not sure about Leto's Joker either. They haven't showed much footage of him so far, but I wasn't really enamored with what they showed in the second trailer.
I'm happy that they're not trying to redo the same Jokers in any way. It looks like they've made I'm assuming third film adaptation of Joker.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a departure from
It's a departure.
Nicholson
Just
or
before
Ledger.
just before Christmas, I saw a meme that was sort of like showing all the different Jokers throughout cinema history, where like their personalities. So you had the 1960s Joker, Cesar Romero, who was more of a sort of like the clown.
Yeah.
And then you have Nicholson, which was the psychopath. And then you had the...
Ledger.
Thank you. What is wrong with me this morning? So you got Ledger, and he's more of the... I can't remember the description they gave him, but he was more of the lunatic.
Yeah.
And he had this really intelligent plan.
Yeah.
Really, in the end, it was
Yeah.
it was an amazingly complicated plan.
And then the meme for
Suppose you call
Leto...
him the nihilist, really.
Yeah, and the meme for Leto, because we haven't really seen it, they're just drawing on what they've seen so far, and it just basically says something like emo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it looks like, though. It's like...
Oh God, I hope it's not. But anyway, so any other news we got?
I actually wanted to talk about this quite quickly. X-Files, we know it's coming back.
Yes.
It's not long away. It's the end of the month or something.
Yeah.
And something was dropped on live on what do you call it? Media.
Social media?
Social media. Thank you. Fuck, my
social
brain.
media. Yep.
Honestly, it's gone to mash. Social media dropped a bit of news in the last couple of days regarding Gillian Anderson. We found out through social media that she had to fight back in the 90s for equal pay. And
Even though she's like one of the two
main stars.
in every second scene in the series.
Well, there is no X-Files without Scully.
Yeah. And she basically, all she wanted was equal pay to David Duchovny's. And back then, both of them were really nobodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true, yeah.
And
So at that point, they were saying it was sexism.
yeah. And lo and behold, she had to do it again for what we're about to see. And it just astounds me at this day and age, considering the franchise, where it is, the popularity it has, that she would have to go through that all over again. It's
Yeah,
just
it's true.
ridiculous.
It's. I think to us it seems a bit crazy because we've got heavily unionised workforce in Australia. We do have equal pay for equal work across a number of different levels. But as soon as you start moving into individual contract, all that stuff goes out the window. And that's where America's been for a number of years. You can be doing the same work as somebody else and be on a completely different contract. And when it comes to things like film, like they're supposed to be almost completely secret when they're doing their negotiations, and no one should be knowing how much they earn for a particular thing unless the actor drops it in an interview or something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Was it Mad Max? Was it Tom Hardy that insisted Charlize Theron get paid the same as him? There was a movie recently
Holy
where the
shit.
male actor
If it was that
kicked
movie-
up a stink because
If it was that movie, that's shocking. He should have
Well,
been begging
yeah,
to be
exactly.
paid the same as her.
yeah.
Like, she was the standout in that movie.
Yeah, he really was just the narrator in that
Well,
movie.
no,
wasn't
he probably realised that he was getting paid more than her. Then it's like, well,
So this doesn't backfire.
I don't want a pay cut.
yeah.
Yeah, come out on the right side of that.
Yeah.
And I think for him, I think he's probably realised that she's putting in a tremendous amount of effort, and she should be rewarded for it. And he doesn't want to be complicit to that kind of sexism.
Yeah. Also in news, we talked about it briefly last week regarding Deadpool, how the marketing has been just fantastic.
I love Deadpool.
Just for Australia Day, they've recorded a quick clip that is just hilarious. You can search it on YouTube. Just Deadpool wants to wish Australia a happy Australia Day.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible to watch. It's just funny.
yeah. Taking the piss.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And in related news, apparently responses to the advanced screenings they held in, I think it was Boston recently, have been incredibly positive.
Hey.
Everybody said it's what they expected. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because
it
if
shouldn't be
it's
too
anything
long.
like the trailers, that's going to be an amazing movie.
Yeah, so it's due for worldwide release, is it? For the same date, or it's being staggered?
I'm not sure, actually.
As far as I'm aware, it's February 11th, so just before Valentine's Day.
Right, yeah.
I love the fact that they're pushing it as a Valentine's Day movie.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I think Reynolds posted on Facebook, he's like, I'm going to get in trouble for this.
All right. I think it's time to move on to this week's movie. And okay, so this week's movie is The Hateful Eight, directed by and written by Quentin Tarantino,
Yes.
starring Samuel L. Jackson, Kurt Russell, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Walton Goggins, Demian Bichir. I'm going to assume that's how you pronounce it.
Sure.
Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Bruce Dern, and a couple others. So it's an all-star cast, most of which have actually worked with Quentin Tarantino at some point or another.
Yes, yep. I think Jennifer Jason Leigh was one of the standouts that hadn't previously.
Right.
And there was a couple of others, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, it's a typical Tarantino ensemble.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, so the history of this film is the fact that Quentin Tarantino got his hands on a 70mm camera,
Yes.
which aren't being made anymore. They haven't been made for decades.
No.
And so he managed to get his hands on one and put this script to that camera.
Well, we should say before that, the script actually leaked before they
I forgot
started
about
pre-production. And Tarantino, for want of a better word, threw a hissy fit and said, screw it, I'm not going to make it. And so he left it for a couple of months, and then they did a live reading sometime in 2014. And Samuel L. Jackson basically insisted that he make it again. So it was Jackson's encouragement that prompted him to go ahead and actually produce it.
Did they figure out who actually leaked it? Because there's only a few people that would have had the script at that stage.
Tarantino said that he knew who it must have been because, there was only a few out in the wild. He said it wasn't one of the actors, but it was one of their agents or somebody associated with them. So, whether or not he's ever actually going to reveal it is...
What's the interest in doing that?
As in revealing it?
Or revealing it.
Yeah.
People want to read it. People want to criticize.
Yeah.
Or have their say to bits and so forth. And so all people just can't simply keep their mouth shut.
I suppose, that's probably got to be the hottest sort of piece of info you can have.
Tarantino script.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And I mean, he's someone who's pretty influential in the cinema world. So anyone who has anything affiliated with him would be excited to be working with him because he's such a big name.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So it leaked. They did a live table reading. Samuel L. Jackson was like, "You've got to do this." And then you were saying, Carlos, they got the 70mm Panavision camera.
Yeah, so they managed to get their hands on this camera, and no one really knew, from what I've read, no one knew how to use the camera. They sort of just experimented with it. The camera, I think, broke down once or twice during filming, and they had to figure out how to repair it.
Yeah.
But it was a good experience for Tarantino and for all the actors involved. And from it, they created The Hateful Eight. And it's a movie that's kind of a Western, but not really. At least it's the setting. But
I think stylistically it's a Western, but thematically and plot-wise it's not. It's more like an Agatha Christie mystery.
Right. So, but for the film, what they did was, because not all cinemas can actually run the 70mm film,
Yep.
he did a roadshow. So he did a roadshow throughout the globe. And we went to that roadshow in Sydney at George Street just last week. And it was a good experience. So they sit there and they actually have the overture, just like going to the old school cinemas.
Yeah.
The overture, so you actually get to hear the music throughout the film, stylized for the introduction. And then the film opens and you get a nice intermission while they change the reels over.
Yeah, physically change the reels. It was such archaic technology. They actually had to work with a lens maker to custom produce 100 lenses for the projectors to actually even be able to show it in modern cinemas. So not only were they pulling out the old film projectors, they had to custom manufacture lenses just to be able to retrofit a cinema to be able to play it. So
that's just awesome. Crazy.
It's an amazing achievement. Really getting it on screen at a 70mm projection.
Yeah. And I have to admit, Dan was pushing, for us to go see this one, and he's like, man, it's the 8K of the cinema world. You've got to think of it that way. And I'll tell you, it is visually stunning.
Yeah. So it's super, super detailed.
Yeah, it's literally watching something on HD at your house on a nice big television and you're sitting really close to it.
Yeah.
It captures everything.
So did you see the traditional digital projection, Lee?
I didn't see it at all.
So
I was
Lee
about to
hasn't
mention that.
Right.
I forgot to mention that. Lee hasn't had the opportunity to see this one, but he has prepared questions for us.
You've actually gone through half my list already. So that's nice. I feel like I'm really going to contribute here.
All right, so do we kick off with the plot, or do you want to know?
I just want to ask more about the actual 70mm, like the technology of it.
While we're there, go on.
Yeah, so it was basically, did it actually provide something for the movie that was necessary? Was it necessary for this movie to be so detailed?
Well, see, there's two levels to it. One is it's projected in, I think it's like 2.39 to 1 ratio, so it's like ultra widescreen.
Yep.
So that sort of lends itself to a higher quality projection to start with, because the more resolution you can get out of a widescreen projection, the better.
Yep.
But also, where was I going with that?
My point is basically,
was it necessary?
Did they use a lot of outdoor shots? Like, are they trying to show you the size of where they're located?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying before, how it's stylistically it's a Western, but the storyline is not a Western. So thematically, as far as the opening shots and stuff, that definitely benefited. But once you got into the actual story itself, I wonder whether or not
completely unnecessary.
Yeah. So
what about
it sort of
in the room? Like, if I was just thinking about, if it's super widescreen, do they sit one character right in the middle, but then you can see everybody else off to the sides?
Yeah.
And so therefore you get a sense of everybody being involved in that piece of exposition or something?
I think it's something that it's worth seeing in another time, so you can notice stuff like that. But like on first viewing, you don't really notice it.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that will reward you on repeat viewings. Yeah.
It does help in that aspect to give like a sense of space in the room that they're in, because the room that they're in is literally one room. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And but there are a lot of things in the room, like you've got a kitchen area, you've got a stove, you've got a lounge area, fireplace, and so forth. There are things around.
Yeah. So do you capture like half the room in a sort of a wide shot inside?
It depends on what he's trying to frame.
Yeah, no, a lot of it was sort of framed to sort of the corners of the room, if you like. So it wasn't necessarily a wide shot of the entire room. I think he used it as a device to sort of draw your attention to particular areas of the room at different points.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe it's not like security cam footage where they show you the entire hallway and you're watching something scary happen down this corner and then there's somebody coming along the hallway.
Yeah. No, that's the thing.
They could have easily done that.
But it wasn't the focus of this movie.
But no, that wasn't the story, really. Like it wasn't a story that lended itself to that sort of, approach. So I don't know. Yeah, that's
one thing I did notice he was doing a lot of was so there'd be, say, 2 to 3 people in a frame, and there was an interaction going on with one of the characters who was closer to the camera. And then there was something going on in the background, and whenever someone was interested in what they were doing and they turn and look, the focus would shift.
Yeah, there was a lot of pull focuses. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot, and in one particular scene, Jennifer Jason Leigh playing Daisy Domergue.
Domergue, yep.
She's curious at what certain people are doing, and she's like doing a lot of back and forths, looking at the same people, and there's a lot of that sort of changing back and forth.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe to show how good the camera is actually at operating focus and stuff like that. But
see, I think that was that was an attempt to reproduce the Western aesthetic, because there was a lot of shots, the pull focus shots, and then also the kind of shot where you have somebody in the foreground, somebody in the mid to background, both in focus, and sort of a blurred sort of shot in between. So again, a very classic Western sort of framing. So it was very much, and that's where it becomes weird, because it's like it's shot as a Western, but it's not a Western.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Just before I move on, just from the technology of it, do you think it's something that we're going to miss out on? Like, is 70mm something that they should be filming new movies in?
well, here's the thing, right? Majority of films being filmed these days are all done digitally. There's no having to handle film. There's no having to handle negatives, possibly ruining them.
Yeah.
I mean, hard drives can fail, but you record on multiple hard drives and save spaces.
What does it offer you? It's not just a lens into the movie world. Like it's the multiple focus, the super wide angle. Is that something that we should be worried about losing?
Well, see, mind you, the focus thing isn't particularly revolutionary and not something unique to the 70mm.
No, you can do it on anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I was more interested in the fact that they were able to do pull focuses like that using the 65mm Panavision, because it's a relic, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, see, I mean, I think the problem is you couldn't shoot like an action movie using a 65mm Panavision camera. Like there's only very particular genres that kind of camera would be appropriate to.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that we're particularly missing anything. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was very nice to look at, like the cinematography around it, but it reminds me of The Force Awakens, which was shot on 35mm, and that still looked beautiful. The composure of those shots was great. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So so the shot is, it doesn't feel like we're going to be missing out on anything, seeing as this may be the last 70mm film that's really pushed.
It feels,
until we have a second round of hipsters happen in another 30 years' time.
Yeah. In all honesty, I think it's one of those things that majority of people wouldn't even notice the quality difference. Yeah.
But it was a nice experience to go, this is something special. There's an intermission. Why is that? Because they have to change the reel.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool.
It was a novelty, but it was a fun novelty, Yeah.
It wasn't just like, that was weird.
Yeah.
Well, the movie gets weird.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Was there any major changes to the script? That was the next question I had.
Well, he's not really announced anything, so
people would have been able to tell. Surely they've already got the original.
Managed to find the script and read it.
Yeah. From everything I've read, nobody's really made mention of the fact that the leaked script was significantly different to what was actually filmed. So it sounds like it was relatively similar.
Yeah, I doubt it. They would have really changed much. Maybe when it comes to the day of shooting, something just isn't working, and which happens. Yeah. Something doesn't work, you change it on the spot to try and make it work.
Yeah.
And then the next one was, I think you started to say about the genre it was. I've heard or read that Tarantino tries to explore underused genres, and so this was a Western genre that he's gone back to. But you're saying it wasn't even really a Western; it was
not at all
murder mystery.
No, if you want a Tarantino Western, go watch Django Unchained.
Yeah. That was his spaghetti Western.
Yeah, if you're looking for a Western from Tarantino, just deal with that one and don't look anywhere else.
Yeah, and so this is moving back into I have fuzzy recollection of some of his movies at this point, but just that dealing with everybody, they're all trapped in the one room, and it's that sort of microcosm of the world, and they've got to figure out who the killer is, and it's one of them.
It definitely had there was a strong allusion to Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, all right.
Felt very similar, story-wise, I think.
And
But like, yeah, how much of it is like? It's just a small percentage of it when it becomes a murder mystery.
Yeah.
To me, it's like the majority of it is like, I don't know, just a dialogue drama thing, and then it just switches and becomes like a crime thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It was sort of at the intermission that it changed.
Yeah.
That's
pace.
something I actually wanted to get into. I think to start with, like the concept of the film is that shortly after the American Civil War, a bounty hunter is traveling to a place called Red Rock. Was it Red Rock?
Yeah, Red Rock.
So he's traveling to a place called Red Rock to deliver a bounty. The bounty is worth $10,000.
Yeah.
And he's just highly paranoid. But along the way, because they're almost trapped in a blizzard trying to get to Red Rock, the bounty hunter, which is played by Kurt Russell, runs into another bounty hunter, Samuel L. Jackson. They have an exchange of somewhat trust, and Samuel is allowed to enter the wagon to head towards Red Rock to deliver his own bounties. Along the way, they run into a couple of other characters, and before you know it, they have to take shelter from the blizzard at a haberdashery.
Minnie's haberdashery?
Something like that. Minnie's haberdashery. And from there, that's when you meet the rest of the characters. And instantly, Kurt Russell's character just does not trust anyone because he's carrying such a high bounty, and he always brings his bounties alive.
Yeah, so I was
They
about to
call him
ask.
the
You
hangman.
keep calling it a bounty. Yeah, so it is a person.
It is a person.
Yeah.
Which
So that was
is
Daisy, Jennifer
Yeah,
Jason
which
Leigh.
is Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah. And he's nicknamed the Hangman because he always brings his bounties in alive.
So from there, you have the prospect, okay, it's a Western, but the moment they enter the haberdashery, the idea of just being a Western goes away.
Yeah.
So they're still in the Western world, and the rules of engagement with firearms still kind of apply. Don't shoot anyone in cold blood, but if someone goes to shoot you, you can shoot them back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that brings about the first death, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Which is inspired by Samuel L. Jackson being that he's black. People don't like that, particularly when the person he's talking to is one of the Confederates
Yeah.
Yeah.
and a general of the Confederates at that.
Yeah.
And,
So there's a larger conversation to have about the racial politics of the movie there, but I think we'll sort of move on to that later on. So so this idea that like Tarantino movies are always heavy on the dialogue, yeah. It just seemed to me like the dialogue didn't really serve a purpose in this movie. You know, like there was the off the wall story near the middle, you know, with the and that sort of thing, but it all just sort of felt like it was for nothing.
What was the story?
So the story is the general is looking for his son. His son's gone missing. And people, in an earlier dialogue, you find out that Samuel L. Jackson, because he's black and there's some history that you find out of him, he has a bounty on his own head, even though he's a bounty hunter. And
Did so during the war anyway.
Yeah. And so because of it, people are still after him. And so every time he comes across someone, he's not dumb, he's quite intelligent, and he puts them down. And one of the people that happened to go after his bounty was the general's son.
Or did he?
That's the question. Therein lies the question. Because the fact that he's just a Confederate general, you sit there wondering whether Samuel L. Jackson is just making this all up just for the fact that he wants to shoot this man. For the idea that he could have been imprisoned as still a slave because of this man.
Yeah. So the upshot being he tells the general that basically he killed his son, the general's son, and forced him to perform fellatio on him beforehand.
Yeah.
So
so it's just trying to antagonize him.
Yeah. So there's this beautiful flashback image of Samuel L. Jackson with this white dude hanging off his dick.
Wow.
Yeah. So
everybody needs that in 70mm, I swear.
Right,
yeah.
Which I think is the sole reason why Samuel L. Jackson pushed for this movie to be made. It was just for that scene.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
but
God.
yeah, see, my issue with that whole flashback was it just seemed so out of place.
Yeah.
You know, you expect that from Tarantino, sure. You know, there's always going to be some non sequitur that's over the top, but it didn't lend itself to the period or the story or anything. It just seemed like Tarantino shock factor for the sake of Tarantino shock factor. You know, like yeah.
To me, it wasn't necessary at all. But
So it seems to me like it was, because it doesn't quite make sense, it was just Samuel L. Jackson's character trying to bait the general.
Yeah, I would go as far as that.
I think, the idea was it's meant to be left open. But the upshot of that confrontation was he wanted the general to pull a gun on him so he could kill him. Yeah. So it was towards an end.
Did that work?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
And that's the first death right before the intermission.
And isn't that's also the end of the first act, right?
Yeah.
So the first half of the film. And what's interesting is like General Tarantino, right? So he writes dialogue with nice lengthy monologues and discussions from majority of his characters. So leading into the film, we have not one, but two lengthy conversations in the carriage to try and reveal characters. And to me, it wasn't necessary at all. It could have gone straight to the cabin and done it in the cabin. But instead, we're left with that at the start. And then, so you got these nice cinematic shots, long conversations.
Yeah, heaps of exposition.
And then, mind you, all the conversation is being done by the characters towards each other. So they're all in conversation. Then the end of the first act happens. And when we come back after the nice 12-minute, 15-minute intermission, we're suddenly presented with a narrator.
It's so out of place.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, what, is this someone's diary? Are we, or do we, was this meant to be at the start and someone forgot to turn on the audio?
Did they ever explain it?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
And I checked, the narrator was Tarantino.
Was.
Yeah, so that was him.
It was just so left field.
I'd like to know if that was in the original script.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe they got to the end of filming and the audience just went, I don't understand what happened.
No, it feels like it was definitely a part of the script, at least from an early point, because it does sort of...
And
the second half sort of hinges on that explanation. Yeah.
The weird
because he talks about the coffee.
About it. Yeah. Like it gives even more exposition. But the weird thing about it was it fit the movie. It still worked and still helped it.
Yeah.
But what stood out the most is we've never heard this exposition, like this narrator before.
Yeah.
That's what stuck out like dog's balls.
Yeah.
And if we had that at the beginning...
Was there a complete stylistic change between the first half and second half?
I would say so.
I would, yeah.
So this was to go along with the stylistic change, perhaps?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I mean, the second half is basically when he brings the blood, if you like.
Yeah. That was going to be one of my other questions. Is this the super gory Tarantino that we're expecting to see?
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit too much, to be honest.
It's like campy violence, like more than I tend to remember from his other films.
Did you guys see the Grindhouse films?
No, I haven't gotten around.
I did, but I've forgotten them because I didn't like them.
See, I quietly enjoyed them. They were like gore for the fun of gore. Just embrace it. Be completely
that's the bit
over
that
the
I
top.
like about it.
Yeah,
when it's watching somebody suffer. Yeah, that's not it. But when it's making fun of someone who was a shit character being blown up. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Just embracing it. Yeah. Whereas the Hateful Eight, it seemed like the over the top gore was there because it has to be in a Tarantino movie. I don't think it necessarily. Well, it didn't serve the plot.
No, not at all.
I definitely agree with that.
And it didn't seem necessary. Like
for me, the gore also sort of pigeonholed the story to not really move anywhere.
Yeah.
And sort of trap them, kind of like Reservoir Dogs. They're trapped in a room. Because everyone's too bloody injured to actually do anything.
The difference, I think, with Reservoir Dogs is there was a lot more sort of slow reveals, and there was still sort of secrets and subplots that were coming out all the way towards to the end of the film. Whereas here, once the conceit is revealed, it it doesn't really go anywhere else.
The main thing is like,
well, now we've got to start killing people off.
Like apparently the influences for the script was The Thing,
yeah,
and Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get the Reservoir Dogs thing. It's very much like that. But you take a look at The Thing, and The Thing is like this really interesting. Horror aside, it's a really great murder mystery.
Yeah.
Right? You have a killer who can look like anyone. And by the time you figure that out, who the person actually is, it's moved on to someone else. Right? So you're constantly chasing that mystery.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, he presents the mystery. There's a notion of paranoia which is never explained. You never find out why Kurt Russell says someone here isn't who they say they are.
Yeah.
He has no basis to say it, but he says it anyway. And I mean, that might be just his character, that he just
Maybe
doesn't
just
trust anyone.
A gut feeling.
So there is that level of paranoia that brings that air of mystery. Okay, someone here is probably going to be working with Daisy to spring her free. Okay, great notion. But then the mystery is revealed all in one single blow. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and it's right as they start asking the question for the mystery. It's like, all right, which one of you guys is working with them? And then you find out the big ass fucking reveal.
Yeah.
And it's within 10 seconds of asking the damn question.
Yeah, so you don't get that enjoyment of the murder mystery being presented with enough evidence to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's the bit I love so much about murder mysteries.
And there's no reason he couldn't have drawn out that reveal. So, you know, like, okay, reveal
Sounds like he's
that-
got a lot of room in the front half that he could have done away with.
Yeah.
But, you know, instead of going, all right, bang, there it is, you know, all four of them, they could have said, all right, there's two. And then maybe with the flashbacks, reveal more, like there's a third person and there's a fourth person in the background sort of thing, you know, like it didn't have to be so sudden. Yeah, so I just feel like, I don't know, I don't want to say it, it didn't feel rushed because it was nearly 3 hours, you know, so it was quite a long movie.
Okay, it might not have felt rushed in terms of the movie itself, but in terms of you go to the movie not just to see things, but to actually go through a story. Was the story crammed down one end of the film?
It's had pacing issues, honestly. I gotta say that it's weird that the most thing I enjoyed from the film was the dialogue and the characters. I got really immersed with the characters, but then in the back end of the film where they just casually get all slaughtered, it feels like a waste.
Yeah. The performances by everybody involved were great.
Yeah, absolutely.
The dialogue itself, the way it was delivered, everything about every single actor involved was brilliant.
Who was the best?
Oh, well.
Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
But, I just love seeing
answer.
Kurt Russell again.
Yeah, I wanted that answer.
Yeah.
I would have to say, surprisingly, like Samuel L. Jackson, we all know he loves to talk.
Yeah.
Right? And he loves Quentin's scripts because he gets that opportunity. He plays an interesting character. He is good. They're all just as good as each other. But I would have to admit that it's probably Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah.
She's just a crazy woman.
Yeah.
And it's just all so subtle. And like she cops a beating in this movie.
Yeah. Why? Yeah.
Right? Like because and it's majority of the time it's from Kurt Russell. He knows who she is. And how dangerous
just likes
she
getting
is.
under his skin or something.
Yeah, she'll get under someone else's skin.
And he'll shut
and
her
he'll
up.
punish her.
Yeah.
And she'll just laugh it off. Meanwhile, she's got broken nose, missing teeth. You know what I mean? Like her performance was great.
Yeah, she was good. Oh, and then the song towards the end,
Yeah.
she sings.
She baits Kurt Russell's character through a song.
Yeah, and I found out this morning that was actually an Australian folk song called Jim Jones at Botany Bay.
What I actually wanted to talk about was one of the notions of what makes this an interesting sort of Western, I guess, is that there isn't the barren wasteland and deserts. There's snow, which is what you don't normally see in Westerns, right?
There's
okay.
there's two really great snow westerns, and that's the main reason that one's called Day of the Outlaw and another one's called The Great Silence. And because I'm a fan of those two movies, that's the main reason I wanted to see this movie. I highly recommend those two. The Great Silence is also scored by Ennio Morricone, which
Right.
but they're not well known. They're like cult movies. But yeah, that's
So there was
them
a
out.
precedent there then.
But one of the reasons that Tarantino wanted to do it in the snow was one of his excuses was blood looks great against the snow backdrop.
Yeah.
But you don't see it.
No, yeah. I don't think there's any blood outside, is there?
Maybe one part where Daisy is hit or something
Okay.
from memory,
yeah.
but that's it. That's all there is. There could have been a really beautiful landscape shot of some altercation,
Yeah.
someone being killed. with blood going.
There was the one guy in the flashback, the black houseboy, if you like.
Yeah.
As he's sort of stumbling through the snow. But yeah, that was literally all, I think.
I mean, there was so much opportunity for it.
Yeah, it's true.
Nothing.
Heaps of opportunity for this film. Yeah.
So, speaking of the case of the character of Daisy, I did want to touch on some of the controversies that have surrounded this. Obviously, again, being a Tarantino movie, controversy is going to follow it. But there's been a bit of criticism of the way that Daisy's character was handled and the violence against her. I personally don't really have an issue there because it's established from the beginning that she's a cold-blooded killer, like she's a bounty on her way to get hanged, so I don't think there's an argument to be made that it's violence against women or anything, like it's violence against a criminal.
I think part of the way that Tarantino has done the script and has filmed it as well is you see this violence against her, and most of the time the way she's interacting with the characters to make them hit her, she's not doing anything violent or saying anything really nasty, not until later anyway.
That's true.
But which the early initial sort of attacks on her do make you think, fuck, man, like, ease up. And it happens a couple of times with Kurt Russell's character, like the way he just lashes at her. But the thing is, you are right. They do establish that she has a $10,000 or $50,000 bounty. I can't remember.
I think it's only 10.
It was 10, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so $10,000 bounty on her, that's a huge amount of money. So she must have done something nasty.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of the ways you can sort of check to see whether you think it's a bit sexist or it's the wrong way to portray someone, does it elicit the same response if it was a man?
No.
If it
You
was,
don't think so?
If it was a man in that spot,
I think...
does it change?
I'm not sure. I think, like, him hitting a girl is, like, played for laughs. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, you've got a point there. It was sort of a bit...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that was his intent or that's just how it turned out to be. Like, I think, he's gotten a lot of flack over this.
But yeah, to your question, would it be the same if it were a guy? And I mean, that's a problem. I don't necessarily have an objection to it to begin with, but I think a dude in the same place, it probably wouldn't be as controversial, but I would still see it as logically consistent regardless of whether or not it was a guy or a girl.
Personally, I also think it's trying to be a period piece of the date they're set at.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So women were treated like shit anyway.
Yeah. Well, what I'm getting at is I've heard the point of view that yes, it's consistent with the times, but do you need to tell that story again?
No, true. Very true.
Like, because that story has been told. We know that it was bad. Like, do you need to just keep going over and over it again?
See, and that also speaks to, I think it's almost an obsession Tarantino has now with the United States sort of pre and post Civil War. He's very sort of tied up in racial politics these days. Like from Django, I mean, I guess even to a lesser extent Inglourious Bastards, with the whole Jewish Nazi thing. But that was definitely... Yeah, because that's the other controversy with the Hateful Eight is the use of the N-word again. I think it's used 65 times.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And so I'd imagine Tarantino's justification would be, well, it's a period piece, that's the way it was there. But it feels like he's sort of laboring these points too much.
Maybe just to take the meaning out of it, maybe.
The other thing too is, like, I suppose this is where doing a little bit has more of an impact.
Yeah, right.
So you just mentioned that he mentions the N-word 65 times. If he had gone throughout that entire movie and only used it once in somewhere which, if you just use it once, it would have had more of an effect rather than desensitize people to it.
Yeah, definitely.
The same with probably hitting Daisy's character so many times. As Bill points out, it became a comedic effect.
Yeah, whereas if they'd sort of built it up to a crescendo when then finally Kurt Russell turns around and just backhands her or something, it would be much more powerful than,
Is she really, like, she's painted as the big villain in this piece, but is she really that bad compared to everyone else?
That's probably another one of the points of the movie.
Yeah,
it's probably saying
that's a fair
that
question.
the bounty hunters have to be so damn ruthless. Are they any better? I think the only difference would be that they're predictable. We know what they're going to do. They're being paid to do a function, and they're going to do anything within those bounds.
Yeah, it's not necessarily morally, but consistent
to
on
be honest,
some
consistency.
level. Yeah.
To answer your question, Bill, in what she does in the movie, no,
Yeah.
not at all. With what you presented, she's probably the one that does the least.
Yeah.
She baits people, but she doesn't physically do anything to them. If there was to be someone, I reckon Kurt Russell's character is probably the most villainous. Well, no, he's the most brutal,
Yeah.
but Samuel L. Jackson's character is actually the most villainous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, a lot of the villains left me empty, and I thought that I was expecting more from them. Like, especially like Tim Roth's character, he seems really interesting, and then the way they dispose of them is like,
Yeah, and very quickly.
yeah,
Yeah. Sort of, post the big reveal, they dispense with them very quickly and rather horrifically as well, I suppose.
Yeah. That's part of that whole bringing the mystery question into it, and within 10, 20 seconds it's gone. And half the characters that are involved in the mystery are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do we actually really know what happened? Is it very clear what happened?
oh
Yeah.
It's
So he has
completely
left
answered.
no doubt. Yeah.
It's completely answered, but this movie ends in a way that just infuriates me. It's one of those movies that you're either going to really like how it ends or you're going to really hate it. And not a pun on the title either.
You're avoiding giving away spoilers, I've noticed. Is that for my benefit or just for the audience in general?
A little bit of both.
You really, anyone listening really needs to go and see it before they...
I think so.
So, what did you guys think of the kind of? He's like a special guest in it. Like, he's not named as one of the Hateful Eight, and he just shows up. Like,
You're talking about Channing Tatum?
yeah. What did you guys think of him?
Completely left field, not really needed.
Yeah.
That's the big surprise in the film, though. When,
Well, that's it. That's when it starts unraveling.
yeah.
I will spoil this bit. When he shows up with a fucking bang because comes out of nowhere. Samuel L. Jackson is asking the question regarding the 4 people against the wall. You guys, clearly one of you guys...
There's 3 of them against the wall.
It was 4, but he pulls one of them out.
Ah, right. Yeah.
He's basically sitting there going, okay, someone's poisoned the coffee and it's got to be one of you guys. Clearly you're helping Daisy and I'm going to figure out who it is. And as he goes to figure it out of nowhere, surprise, surprise, he gets his balls shot off by someone hiding under the floor, which is Channing Tatum. Comes out of fucking nowhere. And it's just like, okay, that was pretty left field.
That's like that's a major spoilers. It's like
No, we do say there's spoilers in
yeah.
this. Yeah.
But like, just out of fucking nowhere. It's like, oh, okay. All right.
And then from there, it all unravels very quickly, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah,
it's sort of
very,
then-
very quick.
Then you get your flashback.
That's actually when
then you get your-
that's where I thought it was before when the general gets killed, but it's actually there when the intermission happens.
no.
That's just after the intermission.
Yeah.
The general getting killed was the point where
It
the
was.
intermission kicks
Okay,
in.
I'm getting confused then.
Because then when they come back, Tarantino's voiceover explains about the coffee,
Oh, there's the thing like
and that's when it leads in.
he gets shot, then it goes flashback, and then he comes back, doesn't it?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
But all of that's after intermission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking about it now. Do you think the voiceover was to help people come back from an intermission because people aren't used to them anymore?
Yeah. I heard that people that didn't see the version as an intermission are really confused because it's only like 15 minutes before blah blah blah. So it
right,
kind of
yeah.
doesn't flow that well.
Yeah.
But then
that's
the
also-
problem is
that
the voiceover reveals a lot of important information as well. So, even if there weren't an intermission, it was sort of necessary to progress the story. So it wasn't just a recap. It was revealing new information at the same time.
I don't think it was
weird.
necessary though.
I think I need to see this movie to actually understand why you would do it.
Because I don't think it's necessary for the simple fact that you come back from the intermission and you might be like, A, how could you forget what just happened? But B,
No, some people do. You get distracted by other things. They want continuity of information.
okay, fine. But the voiceover isn't necessary at all because when it comes back, all you need is one character going, okay, get rid of the body, and you'll see who it is. You'll remember what it is. And then you can continue with the story and with the poisoning of the coffee
Yeah.
without having to explain that while that was happening, this happened.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
But then how would you depict the poisoning in the coffee without revealing who
They did it themselves while the
You could, yeah.
that
You
while
just focus on the pouring of whatever poison into a pot, and you can't see who it is.
Which is what
happens on the flashback of what happened while the general was being shot.
Yeah, fair enough. So all you'd have to do is have that shot and then pull focus to Daisy sitting at the
this
table
is my point.
watching
You didn't actually even need that because while they're coughing up blood from the poisoned coffee, Kurt Russell's character even says it. He goes, "It's the coffee."
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah.
So if it wasn't for that reason, like Tarantino's not a novice filmmaker, why did he do it? There has to be a real reason for it.
I think it's a nod back to the 70s westerns. That's the only explanation I can think of.
I can't think of one that does that though. Not that I know of.
No, me neither. But that's
some of the
think
epic, some of the epic ones that traverse a couple of people's timelines, they'll need a narrator.
It kind of like he jams so many genres, so you don't know where it came from anyway. It could be influenced by something else. By the end of the movie, it's like a horror movie.
It's gore for gore's sake.
Yeah, which is back to the grindhouse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, I think we should wrap up on this one.
Yeah, all right. So,
unless you got another question to ask.
No, I think we've pretty much covered all of mine. I suppose I'll ask you guys. Bill, what would you give this? What was your rating?
Oh, God.
We're doing it out of 5 bananas and you can have half.
I'll probably go I think I'll have to see it again. I probably wouldn't see it at the movies though, but I'll probably give it can I go 2.5 bananas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you can.
Yeah. So the reasoning for that was the gore was unnecessary.
Oh, it's for Tarantino for Tarantino's sake. I just was but I can't say I ever looked at my watch and go, I'm bored. It was pretty entertaining, but it just the end left me flat.
Yeah,
but the actors were so good in it, and the characters were really well written.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it does sound exactly like you've given even positive and negative. So it is 2.5 straight down the center.
Yeah, I feel like we've been fairly negative, but still, I think I would see it again. But
we find out on this podcast when we're talking about stuff, you go, "Oh, geez, we were really harsh on that." But that's what the standout is. That was the move. That was the part of the movie that was the most interesting, and that's what we pull out.
Yeah.
So Dan, what did you think?
So, I think I'm still trying to figure this movie out. I'm with Bill. I'll definitely have to see it again. On paper, all the elements work. The cinematography is fantastic. The performances are great. The script is Tarantino, but it's it's passable Tarantino. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something about this movie. There's something that I don't want to say is too highbrow for me, but I feel like
something meta. This is part of a larger narrative, but we just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for that reason, I'm going to say 3 bananas because, again, I gave Crimson Peak 2.5 because it was perfectly competently acted, perfectly competently shot, but there was nothing that sort of grabbed me about it.
Yeah.
I feel like with this, there's something a little more to it. So, for now, I'll say 3 bananas.
3 bananas. All right, Carlos, your thoughts?
I've really been sitting throughout this week trying to think about what I would give this movie. Because it is enjoyable. There are issues with it. I think more so this movie is an ego piece for Tarantino. He is a competent writer. We've seen it time and time again. He has also some flops, which we've seen every once in a while. But even those flops have an interesting mechanic or piece that go on in the film. And this is one of those for me. I think there is enough to make it work. I don't think it entirely works. I think just for the sake of being Tarantino, there are sequences like the introduction that goes for nearly 5 whole minutes before a word's said. And you have an ending the way it happens where no one really wins, which is fine that it happens, but the ride to get there wasn't enjoyable enough to have such a result.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm going to give it 2 bananas.
2. All right. 2 bananas. 2.5 and 3.
So in saying that, I do want to see it again, not in the cinema. I want to see it on a video release and I want to see what happens with that intermission, whether he creates another short little film to go in its place, or he just puts the movie all in one hit, and whether that narration is still there.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point too. The 70mm projection of the movie had an extra 6 minutes of footage that wasn't in the digital release. So it'd be interesting to find out what that extra 6 minutes was and where it was added.
Maybe it's that.
And maybe
I'm thinking it's probably the wider shots. But I suppose we'll see.
Yeah. Anyway,
Interesting.
all right. So we are Theatre Gorillas, and that was our talk on Hateful Eight. And we'll see you next week. Otherwise, stay tuned to find out the answer for this week's movie. Who am I? Bye.
See ya.
So, yeah.
All right, so you've stayed on for the end of the theme song to find out what this week's movie Who Am I answer is.
I want to know.
All right,
Doing my head in.
You know what?
Before
I'm gonna go around the table, see what you guys think. All right, Lee,
I
do you want to hear the clue again?
Yeah, give me the clue again. My first thought was Harry Potter or something.
Okay, so armed with merely a twig and assisted by a sword-wielding giant, I am sent on a quest to protect a child from certain death.
God. No, I know it's not right because you said it wasn't right, but yeah, my guess is Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Keep going.
I'm going to say Willow.
Why did I get one? I got one goat. That was my response.
It was supposed to be the cross, like from Family Feud.
Yeah, I got angry goat instead. Thanks.
All right, Dan.
I'm going to say Willow.
All right, Bill.
I honestly have no idea.
All right, Dan, you are correct.
All right.
It is 1988's Willow.
Yes.
Yeah, I could not remember that film, and as soon as you said, I went, "Damn it, he's probably right."
Yeah.
Willow has a giant with a sword?
Well, no, Willow's a dwarf.
Yeah, that's
you trickster.
Yeah. That's what revealed it for me. I was like, hang on, giant. He's not necessarily a giant, but in perspective.
Yeah. So directed by Ron Howard, written by George Lucas and Bob Dolman, and stars Val Kilmer, Joanne Whalley, and Warwick Davis.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty cool. All right.
Yeah. So anyway, we're Theatre Gorillas. Catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Stay up.
Bye.
This podcast is recorded and produced by Theatre Gorillas, edited by Dan Clark.